Our Lady Ellen DeGeneres makes the world a less awful place, and after years of being great, she's considered a prized American treasure.
I couldn't do what I do without you. I love you all.
But Ellen's life has been anything but easy to get to where she is today.
There's no moment. I mean, it's kind of been a slow rise to success.
Now, she has carved her own place in a world through comedy, despite some major controversy over something she couldn't change. Instead, she changed the world, not herself. She became the voice of people who, at the time, were being incessantly suppressed, all while being funny, inspiring, and generous.
My career is living my life without shame.
Not only has she made her way from small, humble beginnings to hosting her own TV show, but she's been a role model throughout the years. DeGeneres is now a household name, but most people don't even know how she became the famous woman she is today.
And that's all I care about is kindness in the human race.
Like all the greats, her story is filled with struggles, pain, successes, and accomplishments. That ultimately became her evolution. Stand-up comedy didn't know what it had coming when Ellen was brought into the world, and now with her new special on Netflix, she's wowed the globe all over again. Our past always influences our future, sometimes for the negative and sometimes for the positive.
I'm from the future.
In Ellen DeGeneres' case, she chooses to make it positive.
Thank you. Hi.
Ellen is the great comedian she is today because of the circumstances of her childhood, and how she allowed that to influence her life and persevere through the bad. Let's go back all the way to January 26, 1958, when Ellen Lee DeGeneres was brought into this world by Elliot DeGeneres and Betty DeGeneres. Ellen was born in Metairie, Louisiana, and has one brother named Vance, who is 4 years older than her. The family background is a mix of European descent, French, English, German, and Irish. Her mother was a speech therapist and her father was an insurance agent, and apparently there is royalty in their blood. Ellen even revealed years later that she is actually related to Kate Middleton.
Someone pointed out to me that I'm related to Madonna, Halle Berry, and Kate Middleton.
According to New England Genealogical Society, the Duchess of Cambridge and Ellen are 15th cousins. Vance and Ellen were raised Christian Scientists, which was a path that Ellen only followed for a short while. To say the least, she had an extremely strict upbringing, which she has talked about in her later years. Ellen said about how she grew up, "I didn't see deep emotion from my parents. It was all very polite and very surface. I never knew how anybody was feeling." Because of that religion, everything was fine all the time. As a child, Ellen loved riding her bike and exploring the surrounding neighborhood. Her brother Vance was always touted as the funny child out of the two. But apparently, Ellen had a funny bone gene as well, it just hadn't been discovered just yet. Despite the family being close, they only went on one family vacation as children. And that vacation was to the Warner Brothers studio lots, which her father was very excited about. A little piece of foreshadowing to what Ellen's life would soon come to be. Ellen said that Vance and her most likely got their love for comedy and their own funniness from their father.
Were you in here? Wait a second, okay.
All right.
Apparently, he was a hilarious guy, so we're certain if a funny gene exists, it was from her father's side. Here is Ellen doing a funny bit on her father.
I said, "Gosh, Dad, I'd like a little dolly. Christmas Day, he wheels in this tremendous heavy metal thing."
Unfortunately, Ellen's parents got divorced when she was only 13 years old, a tear in her family that neither her brother nor herself wanted. It was also around this time that Ellen stopped following the religion that she had grown up with. It was not something she believed or felt comfortable with personally. Now, to this day, Ellen has even spoken out against Christian Science and declares herself as non-religious.
So it was a matter of time before I would meet God, and I have.
The divorce also influences her actions of dealing with trauma, both for her and her mother. Ellen decided to go live with her mother, while her brother Vance decided to stay with their father. Ellen came up with comedic dance moves to relieve the tension and make her mom laugh. It was these first moments that played into her lifelong commitment to comedy. To this day, on The Ellen Show, she uses comedy to defuse stressful situations and lighten dark moods. She also has kept dancing in the picture her whole life, as we know with her great openings on the show.
I told you if you danced, it would be the right thing. I'm glad you took my advice.
Born out of a tragic circumstance, Ellen discovered in herself how she could bring joy to her mother and herself. Perhaps these were the first budding moments of the reason Ellen has stayed with comedy for so long, to make others feel better.
Are you having fun?
Betty's marriage broke up partially because of a medical condition that Betty was dealing with, breast cancer. Unable to seek medical help in the marriage, Betty left and tried to shield Ellen from the tragic destruction of cancer. But ultimately, the experience bonded her and her mother forever. Ellen was only 16 years old when Betty had a mastectomy. At the time, it was a rather taboo thing that no one spoke about. Ellen helped her mom with recovery and physical rehabilitation. Ellen told USA Today in 2007, "Everything was a dirty little secret back then." Betty, remembering the support given by her daughter, said, "It's a very special relationship that I do not take for granted. We've been there for each other." Close to the same time, Betty remarried to Roy Grusendorf, who worked as a salesman. Betty and Ellen moved with Roy from the New Orleans area to Atlanta, Texas. Roy became Ellen's stepfather, and it was around this time that another tragic event occurred in Ellen's life. Because Betty had a mastectomy, Roy used this to his advantage to persuade Ellen to do something uncomfortable. Ellen spoke to Allure years later to reveal the horrific sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of her now-deceased stepfather. Ellen said, "My mother's husband said he felt a lump in her other breast, but he didn't want to alarm her, so he needed to feel mine so he could compare. He made me lie down and I let him feel my breasts." Ellen said he tried to do it a few weeks later, and at one point he even tried to break into her room. She escaped out the window and had to sleep in the hospital all night. It took so many years for Ellen to reveal this story of abuse because at the time she felt like an idiot, like she should have known better. Ellen has been very clear that this incident has nothing to do with her sexuality, despite many people assuming that is why she is a lesbian. Ellen spoke out again in 2018 about this incident during the case with Christine Blasey Ford's allegations of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Ellen was appalled that people wouldn't believe Christine and spoke to NBC's Today Show to tell them about what happened to her when she was 15. In wake of the whole Harvey Weinstein sexual abuse scandal, many women have bravely come forward, and Ellen is supporting that with her own tragic story. In the spring of 1976, Ellen graduated from Atlanta, Texas High School, even though she had started her first years of high school at Grace King High School in her hometown, Metairie. She was 18, and after suffering the horrific molestation from her mother's new husband, she moved back to her home state of Louisiana. Ellen moved back to New Orleans to attend university at the state's University of New Orleans. And no, she didn't study comedy. She actually majored in communication studies, but that didn't last long. Ellen saw an opportunity working alongside her cousin, Lauren Gillen, doing clerical work at a law firm and took the position. Many of these early work experiences have made it into her comedy work at one point or another. The most interesting of Ellen's past jobs was in vacuum sales. Maybe that's why the 2013 Oscar ceremony which she hosted, she just needed to vacuum up that first row.
Watch out, Penelope, that is a huge dress. Watch out.
Still, Ellen was a regular woman growing up in the South and never really considered what a career in comedy could be. However, she always brought humor to everything she did. So one evening when her and her friends were out at a fundraiser, they encouraged her to get on stage and do something funny. Despite her bit of stage fright, she decided to listen to her friends. That was a fateful night, as that experience of being on stage and actually making people laugh would change her life. She discovered that she had a knack for making people laugh during that evening. Ellen was cracking jokes to help herself relax when she saw the influence it had on the people watching. She had barely began to write at that point, but used this casual fundraiser as a way to flex her comedy muscles. Years later, she told the story to Oprah's Masterclass, saying, "I had brought a Whopper and fries and a shake, and I went on stage and I said, 'This is my first time being on stage and I have to admit I'm a little nervous. I didn't know what I was going to say and I realized I hadn't eaten all day.' The crowd stayed with her while she ate, and every time she was about to finish a sentence, she would eat. The crowd found this very funny. It was Ellen's first tried comedy, and she was killing it by eating on stage and never finishing a sentence. Ellen says about it, "And then I would take a bite. While I was chewing, I'd put a finger up and then just go, 'Oh, that is good. That's better.' And then I would start the sentence again." Ellen says, "I ate the entire meal. If only it were that easy for everyone." Clearly, Ellen had an inherent talent for comedy and timing. Ellen obviously enjoyed making people laugh, and she would soon begin to take comedy more seriously. But if you think it was all smooth sailing from there, you're wrong. Ellen would yet face another tragedy in her life. At the age of 20, Ellen found her first love in a woman named Kat Perkoff. Kat was a New Orleans poet and a waitress working at a bar in the French Quarter. Kat lived a very fast life and was involved in some questionable circles and activities. Kat is said to be a runaway, drug smuggler, gay bar manager, writer, local icon, and a key player in the New Orleans lesbian mafia underworld. This underworld was filled by pimps, prostitutes, and corrupt cops. During this time, Ellen wasn't doing comedy and said she was most likely waitressing. Ellen spoke to Dax Shepard on Armchair Expert podcast about the untimely death of Ellen's first love, her girlfriend Kat. Ellen and Kat went to her brother's show when they got into an argument. Kat wanted to leave and Ellen acted as if she couldn't hear her over the noise. Kat left and got into a fatal accident. Some say that it was a mafia hit covered up by the cops, while others say it was just a car accident. Ellen was supposed to leave with her that night, but decided to stay longer because of their disagreement. Ellen could have been in that car along with Kat. Later that evening, Ellen took a cab home and actually passed the crash site of her girlfriend. To this day, Ellen feels guilty about that night, especially because Kat had tried to convince her to come back home.
I should have gone home with her that night. She wouldn't have been with that person. I should have stopped.
Ellen said that the crash must have only happened moments before because when they passed the crash, no one was there yet and sirens were heard behind, but they just kept going. It's no wonder that Ellen feels a pain of guilt to this day, but how would she have known? The car was split into two, Ellen said, perhaps the reason why she didn't recognize it. It wasn't until the next morning that Ellen found out it was Kat who was involved in the accident. But why didn't Ellen wonder where she was all night? Perhaps she did, but thought because of the falling out, Kat might have stayed somewhere else. Ellen could no longer afford to stay in the apartment that Kat and Ellen had lived in together, so she moved into a tiny, grungy basement apartment.
And so I just thought it would be great to just pick up the phone and call up God and talk about this.
This was Ellen's first inspiration for a stand-up bit she could do. Ellen thought how nice it would be to just call up God and ask questions. This is where her famous phone call to God was born. Let's take a look at that now.
Wouldn't it be great if we could just pick up the phone and call up God and ask him these things? Just pick up the phone and call up God. Yeah, hi God, this is Ellen. Ellen. DeGeneres. DeGeneres.
That bit made her worldwide famous years later. With the tragic incident of the death of her girlfriend, Ellen still decided to bring out the good in a bad situation, a quality that has defined Ellen's success. Some people would have given up, but Ellen decided to make the best of a sad and horrific moment. This horrible moment was yet another bump on her road that only helped her move forward in life. Ellen soon began performing stand-up comedy in cafe houses and clubs. When Ellen realized she was good at what she was doing, she decided to quit all her other jobs and focus solely on comedy and performance. Her mother helped her both financially and emotionally as her daughter took on the 1980s comedy scene. In 1981, she was the MC at Clyde's Comedy Club in New Orleans. Ellen found inspiration from many sources, not only her own unique life experiences, but also her idols Woody Allen and Steve Martin. She continuously worked on her craft and moved very quickly through the ranks of young comedians. She was good, like really good, and in the early 1980s, she was already touring nationally as a comedian. But that was only the beginning. Ellen had suffered a lot thus far through her mother's cancer to molestation and the tragic death. It was time for her to share her light with the world. And when she got her chance, she didn't hold back. Only a short year later, a video of her stand-up routine won Ellen Showtime's Funniest Person in America in 1982, which shot her to success quickly. Ellen was making her name as a female comic, which at the time was, of course, challenging. Ellen moved out to Los Angeles and was working in Hollywood in 1986 when Jay Leno sent a booking agent from The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson to check out Ellen's act. To say she performed good was an understatement. She was amazing and was soon booked for her first spot on network television. This would get her seen around the globe and literally in the homes of comedy lovers. To say this was her big break would be accurate. The special has been watched millions and millions of times since on various platforms when the digital age emerged. Her bits became famous. Here she is performing her first crack in front of the entire world on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
That whole fitness thing runs in my family, though, I think. That my grandmother started walking 5 miles a day when she was 60. She's 97 today, and we don't know where the hell she is.
During her visit on the show, she broke records as she was the only female comic in history to be invited to sit on the prestigious couch and chat with Carson himself. Throughout Ellen's career, she would find herself in a lot of positions where she was breaking records as a female comic. Not only was Ellen raking in stand-up shows, she also began to appear on TV and in films. Her first television appearance was in one episode of the series Duet in 1989. But it was her major role on the hit sitcom Open House playing Margot Van Meter, where she received so much praise because, of course, as usual, she was hilarious. In 1992, she was cast as Nurse Nancy McIntyre in the series Laurie Hill, but the series didn't last more than 10 episodes. However, it wasn't a total doozy for Ellen. The producers of Laurie Hill loved Ellen's performance so much that they then cast her in their next series originally called These Friends of Mine. However, to avoid any confusion with NBC's still popular series Friends, they renamed the sitcom after the first season to be called Ellen. Yes, inspired by Ellen DeGeneres herself, but her character's name was actually Ellen Morgan. During the run of Ellen, which lasted from 1994 to 1998, she garnered much praise for her performance, as well as gained many fans of her comedy. The series was a huge hit and put Ellen on the map as a major celebrity and comedy genius. For 108 episodes, the show was a huge hit, and Ellen had seen her comedy dreams come true. However, Ellen had her eyes set on something higher. She wanted to affect the world in a positive way and be inclusive of all people. During a two-part episode called The Puppy Episode, the show would reveal just how Ellen would approach doing this. The episode aired on April 30th, 1997 and was viewed by over 47 million people. Her character on the show, Ellen Morgan, came out as a lesbian on the show. This made history instantly as she was the first ever series regular character to be gay in American television. These episodes brought the show its highest ratings, and as then ABC president Jamie Tarses says, the episode was bold and important. We couldn't agree more. This episode helped all networks welcome in a more inclusive and more open form of television. Slowly but surely, Ellen was helping all people, no matter what their sexual orientation, be portrayed on television. In 2018, we are still struggling to make sure equality exists in film and TV, but thanks to Ellen, she got things moving forward in a big way. Let's take a look at the famous moment that brought in a ratings high.
I'm gay.
This coming out episode was a moment of art replicating life. For about a year, Ellen playfully responded for any rumors about her sexuality, making jokes and brushing off all the questions about her sexual orientation. She had still not come out as gay to the world, but she was making everyone laugh with all the subtext in her hit show. In 1997, Oprah had Ellen on her show to reveal her truth to the world. On April 14, 1997, Ellen came out on the cover of Time magazine with the caption reading, "Yep, I'm gay." The magazine was released 2 weeks before the episode actually aired. Obviously, this started a raging controversy in America. Religious groups said they didn't want her dumping that sort of stuff into the kids' minds of America, while others said she was showing the world lesbian and gay stories can be on the front lines. Well, the front lines it was. Newspaper after newspaper wrote about Ellen's sexual orientation. Oprah had agreed to play the therapist in the show, and even Oprah received hate mail for agreeing to this role. Oprah had to stand up to fans and question what was so wrong with being gay. It opened up a huge discussion, not only in the world of film and TV, but as a whole nation. Ellen began a discussion that so many years later is getting better, but is still being debated amongst people. 20 years later, in 2017, Ellen looked back on that episode and spoke to her audience at the Ellen DeGeneres show and said, "It was the hardest thing that I ever had to do in my life. I would not change one moment of it because it led me to be exactly where I am today, standing in front of all of you, which is a joy." Ellen was tearing up at the thought of how far she's come and continued by saying, "And the fact that all of you and everyone at home is watching me and willing to accept me into your homes every day, when no one thought that would ever happen again, it means the world to me." Amen to that, Ellen. We'll watch every day, all day long. Of course, she celebrated the moment with her upbeat dance. Now, it is more accepted to come out, but back then, it was a huge deal, and the criticism that came with Ellen's choice could have affected her career for the negative. She was a trailblazer, and when you do something new, you never know what the outcome may be. E! reported by saying that Ellen had chosen Oprah to play the therapist because she wanted the world to know that even though she was making a joke, the subject matter was very serious. Oprah brought legitimacy to what was going on. Years later, Ellen told Oprah that she was surprised she said yes. At the time Ellen came out, she was at the height of her career, but as she said, and we quote, "I decided being truthful was more important than a career." As Oprah said about Ellen, "You were the bravest woman ever." That may be an understatement. Ellen could have easily kept the jokes up forever, but it was the truth that matters to Ellen. During this whole time, Ellen still did stand up and quickly had truly become the funniest person in America. She was loved by all. Ellen was nominated for 3 Golden Globes for her role on Ellen for Best Performance by an Actress in a Television Series in 1995, 1996, and 1998. Ellen was also nominated for Emmys for the same show for the category of Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series in the years 1995, 96, 97, and 98. Ellen and her team of writers won the Emmy for Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series for the exact episode that caused so much chatter in the States, the puppy episode, where her character came out of the closet. But this wasn't her first win of a major award, though it did solidify that she had made the right decision telling the world who she really was. In September 1994, Ellen co-hosted the 46th Annual Primetime Emmy Awards and even won an award for that. We could go on for a long time about her long list of accolades and awards, but to sum it up in total, by December 2018, Ellen has won 89 awards and been nominated for 81 more, according to IMDb. Yeah, that's a lot. In 1998, Ellen was cancelled, supposedly because ABC's mother company, the Disney Channel, felt uncomfortable that Ellen's character was gay. That wasn't the only breaking news at the end of the 90s. Ellen had also had a public relationship with the stunning actress Anne Heche. The two were in a 3.5-year relationship. Anne Heche was cast in the starring role opposite Harrison Ford in 1998's 6 Days, 7 Nights, only a day before her relationship with Ellen went public. However, things substantially slowed for Anne on a career level after the incredibly public relationship she had with Ellen. Anne thinks it was majorly due to her sexual orientation. People told her she wasn't getting a job because she was gay, and Anne said, "How could that destroy my career? I still can't wrap my head around it." In 2000, Ellen and Anne called it quits and their public relationship came to an end. The breakup was a major shock to even their friends and family as they were searching for a house together only days prior. Ellen would go on to explain that she's doubted Anne's love for her. Ellen suffered a broken heart after her split with Anne. In interviews, she would explain she would wake up in the morning and her eyes would just fill with tears. It was the end of something she had seen a future in, but it was only the beginning of what Ellen would do both in her personal life and her career. We're now at the end of the exotic and eccentric 1990s and into the early 2000s. Ellen was a star and had maintained her humility and relatability through everything she had gone through. She worked hard for that name she now has in Hollywood. It was never handed to her. Her pure comedy got her to the top of the crop, and that was that. Though she's now continued stand-up on and off, it was The Ellen Show in 2001 that she tried to start using the success of Ellen back in the 1990s. The show failed to be as successful as she wanted, and it was cancelled after only 18 episodes in 2002. This wasn't going to deter Ellen. Instead, Ellen had another idea. Perhaps a talk show could be something for her to do. Meanwhile, Ellen had a budding relationship with the Australian actress Portia De Rossi, who saw Ellen at a party and said she fell in love with her at first sight. This was in the year 2000, but it took Portia 3 years to tell Ellen how she felt because she wasn't out to the world yet. In 2004, the second time the two met was at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles for VH1's Big In 04 Awards. A few months later in 2005, Portia came out to the world not only as gay, but also as a couple with Ellen. Portia told The Advocate, and we quote, "Believe me, I had a very, very long and difficult struggle with my sexuality." Seems like Portia couldn't keep the secret about her sexuality quiet any longer because her love for Ellen was too strong. To this day, in 2018, Portia and Ellen have a beautiful relationship. They moved in with each other in 2005 and got married in 2008 when the Supreme Court of California made it possible for same-sex marriage. Let's get back to the early 2000s. After CBS sitcom The Ellen Show failed, she launched a daytime talk show called The Ellen DeGeneres Show in September 2003. At this time, she was rarely doing stand-up comedy anymore, except at the beginning of her new talk show. The show was a massive hit, and still is. It was nominated for 11 Daytime Emmy Awards in its first season. The show took home a whopping 4 awards, which included the prestigious Best Talk Show. Within 3 seasons, Ellen had 25 Emmy wins for the talk show. Now, in 2018, it has won 59 Daytime Emmys. That includes 4 wins for Outstanding Talk Show and 6 for Outstanding Talk Show Entertainment, which actually passes Oprah's award record from The Oprah Winfrey Show. The show has also won tons of People's Choice Awards, 17 to be exact. Could it be her down-to-earth, hilarious demeanor, the incredible celebrity friends she constantly has on the show, or her dancing? We'd have to say that it was all of it. The show has become a favorite across America, and to be honest, probably the world. 2003 was a busy year for Ellen. Not only did she start her new talk show, but she also voiced an iconic character in a Pixar animated feature. You know which one we're talking about. That's right, Finding Nemo. Ellen voiced the forgetful fish Dory, who has become a famous character from Ellen's interpretation of the role. Ellen even reprised her role in a sequel called Finding Dory in 2016. The role garnered her widespread praise and award nomination. In 2010, Ellen did something pretty left field for her expertise, but we love her for her ambition. She opened up her own record label. That's right, her production company, A Very Good Production, which was created with Warner Brothers when starting the talk show. Her production company opened 1111, a new record label that now in 2018 is defunct. Their goal was to represent unknown artists and that she had even been scoping out talent on YouTube. The label went on to support some pretty cool stuff. They signed Jessica Simpson, who released a Christmas album under Ellen's label. She also signed Charlie Puth and Emily Luther. The label may not still be running, but we give kudos to Ellen for her efforts. Another prestigious award was bestowed upon Ellen in 2012. She was selected by the Kennedy Center to receive the year's Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. She wasn't the first female comedian to win the award. Tina Fey, Lily Tomlin, and Whoopi Goldberg were awarded the honor in the past. But over the years, it is mostly male-dominated, so Ellen was not only proud to be sitting with the likes of these incredible comedians, but to be a female doing that.
This really is an amazing feeling, standing here on the stage with this bust and this beautiful statue of Mark Twain.
That 2012 Mark Twain Award allowed her to celebrate her femininity along female comedians. Aside from a booming career, a record-breaking talk show, and a stunning wife, Ellen also has a couple of other hobbies that she devotes her time to. She's an LGBTQ activist, animal rights activist, as well as a humanitarian.
What's equally as important as my career is living my life without shame.
She was named Woman of the Year by PETA in 2009, and her wife even gifted her a gorilla sanctuary for her 16th birthday. It is a permanent gorilla home in Rwanda built for the Digit Fund, a fund that is anti-poaching. Ellen is also vegan to support her beliefs, and on her talk show website she has a section called Going Vegan with Ellen. Beside philanthropy and activism, Ellen has a strangely rich hobby of house flipping. That's right, Ellen likes to buy lavish homes and flip them to sell them for even more. Along with the homes, Ellen is a big fan of hot cars. Portia and Ellen have been seen around Los Angeles driving some pretty sick cars, such as Ferrari and Porsche, just to name a few. 2018 was another big year for Ellen. In January 2018, her father passed away, and as she spoke to her audience on her show, she brought tears to all of her eyes. She recounted their family vacation to the Warner Bros. Lot and how she now has her own show on the lot. She said he was proud and the most non-judgmental person she knew. But things were looking up for Ellen despite the sad news. She celebrated her 10th anniversary with her wife Portia De Rossi. Ellen also broke records by making the Forbes highest paid celebrities list, making a whopping $87 million in the past year. Ellen also was featured in the Maroon 5 and Cardi B music video Girls Like You. But the best news coming from 2018 besides Cardi B and Ellen in the same music video is that we get to Netflix and chill with Ellen. The comedian says, "It has been 15 years since I did a stand-up special. 15 years. Which means it's time we got to see her bust a move out there on stage once again."
And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I was hoping for more of a really?"
The Netflix special called Ellen DeGeneres Relatable, which was much anticipated and released on December 18th, 2018, has made waves. If you haven't seen the brilliant lady make you laugh in a while, then it's time to tune in. The bad news coming from 2018 is the possibility of Ellen's show ending. Now, this is only a possibility, of course, but it's one that definitely frightens us all. What will we do without our favorite comedian to make us laugh and cry and question?
Carry on, you know?
In an interview with the New York Times, she reveals that she has been wavering over extending her contract through summer of 2020. It has been many years, so maybe Ellen wants to try her hand at something totally new? Or perhaps devote herself back to stand-up? Ellen's life has been an evolution beyond just personal growth. Ellen has broadened our horizons with love and acceptance and showing that choosing a positive perspective on life can be done. She has challenged those to be brave by sharing her own painful stories. She has been an advocate for those who do not have a voice that comes with the privilege of speaking on a platform that people listen to.
Because it's okay. Because it is okay.
Ellen has that privilege with her widespread notoriety and her success. She chooses to maintain her humility and preach positivity through humor.
Where somebody
said I saved their life.
Ellen has changed our lives and truly the world through her own unique evolution. Whatever Ellen does in the future, we know it will be great. Do you think Ellen will end her famed talk show? Have you personally been influenced by Ellen? If so, in what way? What struck you the most about Ellen's rise to fame and her life before fame? Let us know all your opinions and thoughts on Ellen in the comments section below. Subscribe to TheTalko and give this video a big thumbs up for our main lady Ellen. Over and out, Trenders!